Howdy, roofers, and welcome to Roofer Growth Hacks, the podcast that's dedicated to highlighting those in the roofing industry, learning how they overcame growth challenges with creative growth hacks, and connecting them with others in the roofing industry. I'm your host, Chris Hunter, and Chief Marketing Officer of roofingsites.com. I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Digital Marketing for Roofers. Got a little story for y'all. Ryan Groth is the founder of Sales Transformation Group. Ryan's a former professional baseball player who turns a sales expert and has helped transform over 500 roofing businesses through his innovative sales systems. This is actually Ryan's second time to come on Roofer Growth Hacks, and in this episode, he gives us a state of sales for roofers. So listen up as Ryan shares some pretty awesome growth hacks. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for coming back on Roofer Growth Hacks here. I know that we had a lot of people that were super interested in all the stuff that you had to talk about in your prior episode, like what was that, a year ago, whatever it was.
Yeah.
How are things going in sales in the roofing industry right now?
Yeah, it's changing a lot. And thanks for having me back, Chris. I know that right now Q1's tough. A lot of the companies we talk to are all feeling like there's just been challenges. I think we all thought Trump would come in and we would just have like an amazing economy, but with all the things he's doing, I think it's a little bit down. So everybody's down 20-30%, which is tough. So obviously sales skills got to be even better in times like these. On the residential side, I'll say that we're definitely seeing a shift with insurance deductibles and increasing and needing to be able to sell retail jobs and financing. So I think that, I've been pounding this drum for a long time is like storms are inevitable, but how roofs are paid for with storms are not, right? That's not like this law that will never change. It's being adjusted in different industry or different states. So what's happening is companies who used to be able to go door knock and even unethically even like make the roof damaged and do these things to try to get business. You can't do that in the same way. And because even a homeowner is going to have to pay more of a deductible or they're tightening up these laws. So what that means is that you have to be good at marketing and sales. And you have to, because selling $1,000 to new roof for $1,000 or even eating the deductible, which many roofers have done and unethically done. That is like not even selling. That's super easy. But selling is like getting someone to pay their own money, out of their own pocket, and spend more to do it and do a good job, and then have a long-standing brand. I mean, that's really what it's about. So, and you got to do a good job, and you get referrals. So I think that the classic. Be a really good professional salesperson who builds a relationship, who could generate referrals, be a good marketer. That's like, sounds really basic, and it's really common, and it sounds like common sense, but common sense is not common practice. So this whole idea of like being more retail focused and more diverse as well, with even getting into commercial with like a local roofing company. My favorite scenarios are like, residential roofing company becomes sophisticated in marketing and selling retail. And then out of organic interest, seeing branding and just relationships, they get commercial jobs and they do $1 million or $2 million a year without even trying. Okay, cool. Like that's working. Like, let's go build this commercial sales team and actually do prospecting and outbound and build that up because, and so those two like structures and skill sets and cultures of like residential retail sales and then commercial, like service and replacement are very, very good business models, and they will keep you, active and successful for a long time. So I just think that roofers are going to need to really start to think, how can they get ahead of the curve before they have to slow things down by being more either commercial and diversify the storm and insurance through being better at commercial, or becoming a retail shop.
Interesting. So I want to kind of dig into the whole commercial, right? You said something here that, build a commercial team and have them go. What does that look like? What does a commercial sales team even look like?
Yeah. So it can look like a few different ways. What's typical is that there's a sales guy who manages the life cycle of the client from contact to contract, and then is an account manager. So there's a few different ways to cut this up. I think that depending on how fast you want to grow will dictate and how much, stomach you have for cash and how good you are at collecting and effectively doing a good job. There's a few different ways to look at it. So first off, you want to look at the customer base. There are architects, there's spec work, there's public, there's private, there's service, there's GCs, there's new construction, there's all that. What I would say, if I was to start, I've been a part of different roofing companies, but if I was to start one right now, I'd probably just lean into the private sector and lead with service. So if you were to start from scratch, you'd have to you only have so many resources, and you'd have to have somebody wear multiple hats until you can start to specialize that. But at the end of the day, if you have a professional salesperson who knows how to sell, knows how to prospect, they can lead with service, and they're basically focusing on solving roof problems, helping facility managers and owners and industrial managers, facility managers, whatever, property managers who are really struggling with keeping their roof from staying dry, to keeping their roof to stay dry. And there's a lot of different ways to message it, but basically you're doing outreach, you're finding out their pain points, you're doing cold calls, email outreach, networking groups, affiliation, association with property management groups, building owner management groups. And you're basically a relationship builder, because commercial is relational. Obviously you want to be relational with your residential sales process too, but it's different because property managers know other managers, and owners know other owners, and they're part of groups, and they have budgets and they have plans for their buildings, and it's just a different type of sale. So instead of selling a job, like in residential, you want to close this job. In commercial, you're like, I'm going to land an account. So how do I nurture and have an ongoing account with multiple deals and multiple transactions and things like that? So when you're going out there in commercial, a commercial sales team could look like this when it matures. You either have end-to-end salespeople who do new business development and manage accounts, and they're responsible for that. They're very prospect sales heavy. Or you have account managers, and account managers basically nurture existing accounts. They grow them. And then you have business development managers who are doing lead gen, branding, and basically lead gen, branding, some cold outreach. They don't really prospect. Typically notice that as hard as like an outbound salesperson would. I think having some sort of inside sales support, so like an inside salesperson, a sales coordinator for lead management, for follow-ups and things like that, eventually need to happen. The account manager with BD model will be slower to grow, but it will be good for the branding, and it would be good for account relationships and securing longer term accounts. The outbound sales team, that's probably more commission heavy and prospecting heavy and more of killers. You're probably going to pay more for them, but you're going to get more, you're going to grow faster, and you could scale that faster. So I think that the biggest companies, the ones that are doing way big numbers, have more of that full outbound commercial sales team. They're just killers. They're just go hunt. They can knock down deals. I think that the ones with the account manager and BD is a little bit more sustainable long term and maybe less expensive. It's more profitable for the company, but it's going to take longer. So if there's a way to do both, that's great. I would say that that's not easy, but you could do it.
Yeah. So, because I'm a geek and I love technology and all that kind of stuff, how especially on a outbound prospecting team that you're building here, theoretically for this commercial side of a roofing company here, what kind of tools are out there, for this outbound? Are there tools that you can go and find, who are the property managers or who are the owners of the buildings, and is that how that works?
Yeah. So there's a tool that we love. It's called Convex. Convex is it was purchased by Service Titan a year or two ago, And they have, it's like Reonomy or,
Yeah.
mixed combined with Zoom Info. So I like this tool the most because it basically has property intelligence and sales intelligence in one. So you have contact info, you have buyer triggers and signaling, and then you have that combined with actual property information. So you have, what type of building is it, who the tenants are, how long they've been in there, what kind of business they're in, who manages it, like who's the owner. All of those things are in there, and you can do a lot of outbound efforts. It doesn't have full CRM capabilities yet, but Service Titan, I know who bought them, is doing some really neat things on their horizon to take the data and embed it into CRM for pipeline outbound measurement and actually measure the activities, not just provide the contact and the info.
Interesting. That's super cool. And it like, so when you're doing outbound, are we talking like a team of people calling and emailing and texting, or what does
Yeah, in
that look
most
like?
cases, reality is like it's going to probably be basic for everybody to start with sales reps who are compensated to land new customers and they're getting the tools to prospect. So they're likely going to say, they get on the phone or do an outreach, and then they set up, they have a problem and a pain point, and then they set up an in-person appointment. So the sales rep then goes out and does this proper discovery, which we teach in STG how to do that, proper qualification, proper understanding of the roof and their challenges, their desired outcomes. So all those beautiful things we teach, getting to an idea of who the decision makers are, the actual decision makers, making sure that we're well set up to propose and present to everybody. And then at that point, you can do your inspection, your takeoff, estimate the job, come up with either a service, re-roof, coating, solution, options, whatever that may be, come back and present that to close it. Now, that's a sales cycle, right? That's going to take 2 to 6 weeks, sometimes 3 months, depending on how big the job is. What happens, though, if you are prospecting, if you don't continue to prospect and you just fill your accounts, like with your appointments, that's great. Like if we can automate that through LinkedIn or outbound email, that's great. Or we delegate that through inside SDR, BDRs, who all they do is just try to set appointments for those people. So I would just say start with all the action and get going and see where the constraint is, and then hire accordingly.
That's cool. Love that. Love that. Now, again, because I'm a geek here, I'm going to dig into, so how much is AI transforming that kind of a process there?
Yeah, I'm uh I'm thinking that AI can take data and do text campaigns. I'm not sure I love the salesperson AI yet, like on the phones. I don't love it. It's not working to me yet. Um, but I think AI could be great for the email and the texting campaigns. I think LinkedIn's got some great promise too. But you could take a CRM data, have AI do some texting and like try to set appointments. Hey, you guys got any leaks? See if they text. Yeah, we actually do. Okay, what's going on with those? Okay, do you want somebody to come out? And then you can get a phone like a phone call going and do a great job. I think it could do some assistance there. Outside of that, I think that there's some power in using AI for inspections and pictometries and being able to come up with like models and nice presentations, but that's about the extent of it right now in terms of like some assistance on AI that I think is good. But at the end of the day, salespeople are still going to be like salespeople aren't going to be replaced by AI. But I do think that AI, when properly used by salespeople, will be the key.
For sure. Absolutely. Well, and I like this whole idea here. And we've never, what we concentrate on is mainly, um, residential for the most part. Very few of our clients honestly do commercial. So it's kind of interesting to see how you would build this whole team up,
Yeah.
um, and really automation, I think is a lot of that key though, but
Yep.
it sounds more like you've got to build those relationships more than anything.
I think automation can help get the conversation started to building relationships, but yeah, it's not going to replace that ever.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Roofingsites.com. Since 2018, roofingsites.com has helped roofers double their sales by getting their marketing right using the 4R roofing marketing system. If you're a roofing company owner wanting to grow your business, be sure to go to roofingsites.com and sign up for a roofing marketing strategy session with me. So, switching over to residential again, right?
Yeah.
So, if you were starting up, well, let's not even go there. How about and because this is more of a state of sales, state of the union for sales at this point, because
Yep.
sales have gotten harder, right? Like you said, that we're down 20-30% in Q1. That's huge. That's massive.
Yep.
um and is that across the board for what you're seeing?
Yeah. It's across the board. Yeah. It's across the board for what we're seeing. And, you know, sales is going to get harder. You need to be better at it, which means it's kind of like this. It's like, I don't know. But I played baseball. I talk about it all the time. Like you got little league, you got travel, you got high school, you got college, junior college, D2, D3, D1. Then you got minor leagues, and you got pros, right? Hall of Fame. The reality is, it's like roofing as an industry is like as a sport, so to speak, is just becoming, because of the rules and the regulations, and because of private equity coming in with their understanding of how to build business, the value they place on training and coaching, the resources available out there. If you have somebody who's super good at sales in a very uncompetitive environment, they're going to dominate, right? But what happens if everybody's starting to become better? It becomes more
Mhm.
competitive. So those
Right.
skills aren't going to put out the points on the board that they used to put on. So you have to get better, even better, right?
Mhm.
So I think what we're finding is that roofing, it's such a good business, right? There's great brands, there's great opportunity. You have to have a training system, and you have to have a culture of training and accountability. The good news is if you're still doing basic fundamentals, running a really good sales org, knowing your numbers, all your KPIs, if you have good, talented people in the room that are doing their job, they're accountable, there's good leadership, they're taking massive action toward a shared vision. You pay them because they sold. You do what you say. You do what you say as employers. You're marketing and generating leads. You do a good job. Like if you do the basics, you're gonna win. But if you want to be very, very good, you have to like take things up a notch, and that's going to be the training quality, the training frequency, your ability to leverage technology to onboard and train people, your ability to create a culture and with vision and environment that people feel like, man, I'm coming into a professional atmosphere here, because good talented people want to find a home. They just don't know
Mhm.
where home is. So it doesn't mean that roofing is not for you. I mean, you can make roofing an incredibly professional, growth minded environment. That's happening, right? You can see those leaders emerging throughout the country, and those are the ones that private equity wants to ride with, and they're buying. And if they don't want to do that, they're going to be successful regardless.
Awesome. Well, and I would imagine, with these bigger groups with bigger, deeper pockets, right? Essentially, than some of the smaller roofers out there. You know, I can imagine that the training that goes into those systems, and especially having the systems
Hmm.
and to begin with, gives them a massive advantage, right?
Yeah.
Um, so so how do the small guys, right? And when I say small, like sub 10 million dollar
Hmm.
guys, how do they compete with private equity then? If that's happening more and more, how do
Well,
we compete?
they have the local tenure. They're still going to be able to build relationships and compete. Um, but yeah, they just need to invest in training. They need to take it seriously. They need to run sales meetings. They need to run role plays. They need to do sales trainings. They need to expose their team to outside help. They need to be thinking like a bigger company.
Hmm.
That's it. I mean, or the owner just does all the work and gets their referrals because they're the owner and they stay small. But
Yeah.
if you want to do that, you're going to be working your butt off, a couple million a year in revenue, and probably make
Yeah.
your 10-20%, but you're going to be grinding, right? But if you want to go to the
Yeah.
next level, you have to work harder. You have to create something bigger than yourself. So, I think that you got to compete but like, athletes don't compete by hacking the system. They compete by being good at the fundamentals. They just have to continue to do it.
Right.
And they got to be better. So there's no cheat code. I think you just got to do the hard work and be willing to compete and level up. And If you don't, you're going to get gobbled up. I mean, you're going to get beat. You're going to be struggling. You're not going to make sales. You're going to get beat out by other people. You're going to wonder why you're losing bids to others. It's going to be tough.
And what are some of those issues that you see currently? I like right now in the state of state of marketing. I'm a marketer, right?
Yeah.
State of sales.
Yeah, like they do. Like for example, what's the intake process when a lead comes in? Is there any pre-qualifying? Is there any? Does the sales rep have a sales system and knowing what questions to ask and why they ask them and do it regularly? And can they master it? Can they get both decision makers in the home? Can they create value and understand and really ask the right questions? Can they ask better questions than they used to? Can they ask more thoughtful questions than their competitors would? Can they set up an environment where the customer feels really heard and understood and seen? And then can they come up with an on-the-spot estimate that's sophisticated, clean, professional? Can they offer the options and sell the warranty, sell the add-ons and the upgrades? Can they not, do they have to be a base bid type sales company, or can they actually sell value? And then can they prevent objections by being better up front? And then can they handle them when they come? And then can they close? And then can you do what you say? And then can you generate referrals and ask the neighborhood and do job site marketing? And we call it the honey hole method. And can you knock the neighborhood and get those referrals and ride the wave of that? And can you do that and not just, can you generate enough leads to onboard new sales reps? Can you have an onboarding process? Can they learn in a meaningful way so they can get traction quickly so they can make money and you fulfill on the opportunity of this company and one's ability as a sales team to be successful. So these are the things that, need to happen. And then can you hold them accountable and reinforce and make sure they're actually using the system that's working? Those are just a few things that just need to occur, right?
So I had a conversation with a client the other day that, I asked him, how do you know what your salespeople are saying, right? How they're talking.
Yep.
And he didn't know. So how is there any technology that can be used so that you, without actually physically being in with the salesperson,
so
to know what they're saying?
A great question. Yeah. So there's technology out there that actually allows you to record conversations in the home, as long as it's not like a two-party consent state. There's some workarounds at that, but most of them aren't, where it records conversations with homeowners and you can hear the sales rep and you can hear what they're asking. And then you can use the tool to take that session and that call and then actually dig deeper and like leverage its AI capabilities and reporting to understand if they completed like certain milestones of the sales process or checkpoints of the sales process, and then use it as leverage to coach. So it's like creating game film or virtual ride-alongs for salespeople. That's how managers can coach very consistently. And we at STG strongly recommend that and help get those going, because when you have a culture of, sales leaders and that are coaching proactively using that, then they're going to see a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's hard to coach someone if you don't know what they're doing, right? So, unless you're there right with them, and that's not really scalable, right?
Proactive versus reactive, because training is like teaching information for the first time, right? Which is what happens. You do some ride-alongs, but then usually they fall away, right? Sales managers are reacting to management issues and housekeeping items, but having a culture of proactive review of those calls is going to be, really a massive difference. Tools like that are game changers for sure.
100%. And I mean, like I have technology like this right here, like Zoom and phones and stuff like that can be recorded, and we can just upload transcript to, something like Chat GPT and ask it to act as, I don't know, Ryan Groth here and let us know what we should be saying, kind of a thing. But yeah, I would think you would need some sort of recording, device happening there. Yeah, totally. All right. Besides all of these items, man, I've got a whole bunch of stuff that I've written down here, but what else, is happening in the state of sales for roofers?
Yeah, I think the other one is like, you got to make everybody W-2. You can't 1099 everybody. I think there's some pretty crackdown laws on that. So it's going to cost you more money, right? You got to do payroll
Yeah.
taxes, and
Mhm.
they have to be full-time employees. The good news is, if you train, coach, measure, hold people accountable,
Mhm.
then they're on your team, and you can do that and set those standards, and make sure that they are on board with those standards. That's good.
Awesome. So, and you've said this a lot of times, but in this interview and when I've listened to you other times, but how often should you be meeting and looking at KPIs and coaching, as an owner to a sales team, let's say?
Yeah, I think that obviously the more coaching you do, the better. And the frequency is important only if the quality and the learning is happening. So you can, do it as often as you can. Sales meetings should be as a team once a week, but then training, coaching, one on ones. There's a few different ways to do it, right? There's like the personal side, like how are you? How are we doing? How are we doing with our goals? I want to help you hit your goals. And then there's like skill based competency coaching, which is like getting into their actual like gaps and then looking at game film, addressing those, and then having a plan going forward. And then you have like actual accountability around numbers and doing what they're supposed to do with their CRM, their technology, the selling system, how they're doing against their goals, what's the team look like, is there camaraderie, is there leaderboards, things like that. So it's a full-time job to be a sales leader. You need that plus a coach. You need all of it to make sure you're doing it well and to scale a sales team. Because if you don't, you're going to have people getting paid that end up having a lot of fluctuation with their behaviors, with their activities, with their attitude. Sales can be tough. Their consistency in their performance. So, think of it as like athletes, right? How are we going to, help athletes win and play offense and score points every single week? You got to create an environment that's like that.
And so along those same lines, how does, in your terms of, athletes, how does one go from being a player to a coach, right? How does one go from doing the sales to hiring a salesperson and like getting that coaching habit? Like how do you typically coach them to coach others?
Yeah. So first off is like, how are they compensated? Because sometimes, and this isn't the for only thing, but sometimes if they're compensated to sell their own stuff, they're just going to close more deals on their own and not really care so much about, because compensation drives behavior. So that's a big part. But it's not every player makes a good coach, and not every player can transition very well. Because and I'm one of those. I'm a coach too, but I also love to do the thing.
Yeah.
I love to sell. So, but yeah, basically, instead of just like you got to show somebody, right? You got to do it with them. You got to like do it with them. Then you got to watch them, and then you got to like coach them. So I think that, a combination of being able to go and do the thing, role play the thing, practice the thing, and then watch them do the thing, observe, and then you got to actually coach them on the thing, which is usually a lot of people stop at the let me just show you how to do it, and then they stop.
Yeah.
And then they don't go from
Yeah.
show to, hey, let me watch you do it, and then let me coach you
Yeah.
to doing it. And I think that's the gap that people need to, it takes patience, but resiliency from the coach to be thoughtful of others and not just like go do it yourself. And
Yeah. Love that. Love that. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on Roofer Growth Hacks again, man. Really, really enjoyed this conversation. Got a ton of things that I wrote down here. But thanks so much, man, for coming on again.
yeah, my pleasure, Chris. And it's great to be with you. Thanks again. Looking forward to getting this out.
Well, how about that, roofers? Was that pretty awesome or what? I know there were some pretty awesome hacks that Ryan gave. So, the very first thing that really stuck out to me in this episode is right off the bat, he said that sales are down 20 to 30% in Q1 of this year versus last year. And that's just amazing. And if you think about it, it kind of makes sense with everything that's going on in the economy and really in the United States right now with Trump taking over and everything. It's not his fault, but at the same time, I think that some of the tariffs and a lot of the things that he's put into place is really kind of, not been so good for the economy just as of yet. That obviously I don't want to get into any kind of politics kind of thing in this, but it's just a simple fact of the matter that things are down, right? And we expected them to be way up. So what he did say also along with that is that because of that, right, you've got to get better at sales. And you not only have to get better at sales, from listening to this conversation, is you have to get better at sales and better at holding teams accountable and better at coaching that team as well, right? So have those systems in place, have your scripts in place, make sure that you're doing all of the fundamental type things, the foundational things that your sales team should be doing on the sales front. The other thing that really stuck out to me is what we talked about it with the commercial team, building out a commercial team. I've never actually done that. So it was interesting to kind of dig into that a little bit. If you are, even thinking about that, I would say get with Ryan and have him, shortcut that for you quite a bit. Commercial definitely will add quite a few, zeros to the bottom line, but you've got to do it right. And it sounds like you've got to build a lot of relationships in order to make that happen. Well, that's going to do it for another episode of Roofer Growth Hacks. I hope you enjoyed this episode and that you connect with Ryan online. I also hope that you connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram or YouTube or Facebook, wherever that you found us. And make sure that you give us a big Aggie thumbs up. See, I've got my Aggies gear on here today. Make sure you give us a big Aggie thumbs up on this episode, if you will. Also, while you're out there, make sure that you head over to our website at roofingsites.com and listen to other previous episodes of Roofer Growth Hacks. I also want to give a huge shout out to our sponsor, roofingsites.com. Since 2018, roofingsites.com has helped roofers double their sales by getting their marketing right using the 4R roofing marketing system. If you're a roofing company owner wanting to grow your business, be sure to go to roofingsites.com and sign up for a roofing marketing strategy session with me. Also, this past year, I published my book, The Ultimate Guide to Digital Marketing for Roofers. If you're a roofing company owner and you don't have this book in your hands, I will send you a free digital copy. Just go to go.roofingsites.com right now. Well, roofers, join me next time when we'll connect with another great roofing entrepreneur and learn how they hack their growth. Until then, I'm Chris Hunter. Thanks and gig 'em.